those other greetings, Spit Adventurers. I'm Jake Spins, welcoming you guys back to my gaming and unboxing channel, where I'm so excited for today's unboxing because we get to talk about Shadow the Anime Girl, or as the creators called her, dun-dun-dun, Ryuko Matoi from the anime Kill la Kill. This was actually one of my first animes, and the very first anime that I stayed up all night to binge watch because it's such a fun story while also being wacky and interesting. It was essentially my first encounter of the anime weirdness vortex, where you see something and you go, oh, that's really weird. I need to know more because I'm curious. So if you don't know the main plot of Kill la Kill, essentially you have this city that's run by a high school that has a ranking system. You have the 1 stars, which is normal students, the 2 stars, which is people that are in clubs, and the 3 stars, which is essentially the officers who run these clubs, and they have these souped up uniforms to be able to give them powers that are based on their clubs to keep everybody in the city in line. Ryuko ends up entering the high school with nothing but determination, the uniform on her back, and half of her scissor blade so that she can find the other half of the scissor blade in hopes of finding the answers to who killed her dad. In doing so, she announces her presence and announces that she is going to fight for these answers. Well, doing so ends up getting her butt whooped. After her defeat, she ends up going to the house to recuperate, to where she ends up accidentally falling in a secret passage with a bunch of litter scattered all over the floor. After falling in, she ends up hearing a very strange voice. Now, this is where the anime gets really weird because, while you might expect it to be a person or some kind of an animal character, she actually finds out that the person who is calling out is a talking sailor's uniform called a kamui, and the sailor's name is Senketsu. To make things even weirder, this sailor uniform is looking for blood and jumps on Ryuko. And I don't mean that he's murderous, I mean he's looking to drink blood. So he jumps on Ryuko, and she's like, oh my god, I'm all of a sudden in this sailor suit. What the heck is going on? And she finds out from the sentient sailor suit that she is now wearing that her dad made the suit for her to try to protect her from the rest of the world and the uniforms that are super powered up. Even more so, this is why the scissor blade was created, aid with Senketsu. However, this gets even more insane because Ryuko actually ends up having a device on her wrist that she's able to pull, making Senketsu go into his super-powered form, and this is fueled by Ryuko's blood, meaning that she can only be in this powered-up state for a short amount of time, but it essentially gives her a more, let's just say, fan-service-y anime type of outfit, where she's more scantily clad, having more of a very short crew cut with some underside showing, as well as a miniskirt and a few other things, including her hair going up and going a little bit powered. At first, when she sees this, she is extremely embarrassed, as pretty much anyone would be. Despite her embarrassment, she does still go back to the high school and decides to fight because she's dedicated. Her fight ends up going against the leader of the tennis club, and as she does this and as she powers herself up, the people around her are laughing at her and she feels extremely embarrassed, but Senketsu ends up reassuring her and saying, don't be bothered by this. Just ignore it, and the more you embrace this, the more powerful you will be. After some struggle, she ends up making it, and she makes a deal with somebody who ends up being very important inside of the school. And by making this deal with her arch rival, which essentially is where the joke of Sonic Adventure 2 Battle comes in, she ends up enrolling in the school and declaring war on everybody while the entire school declares war on her. It's a very interesting plot. And while there is a lot of fan service stuff, if you can actually get past all of that, or if you enjoy that stuff, then it actually is a really good story and a really good anime. And the fact that all of the fan service is either explained through a story narrative reason, or characters that are being creepy are immediately called out by the character, it makes it for a more enjoyable watch. And sure, there are some scenes that do last a little bit longer and do make you blush a little bit more, but it is a really good opening anime, especially if you are getting older and you're looking to jump into anime and see what it's all about. That being said, though, it might be hard to explain to somebody who's not super into anime what Kill la Kill is and why it's so fan servicey. Dude, it feels so good to finally be able to talk about this anime because some of the only figures that were out there was Ryuko and her rival being in a towel in a bathhouse, and that was like over $200. It was such a great looking figure, and it would have been one that I maybe would have considered getting just because Kill la Kill merchandise is super rare just in general, and usually it's fairly expensive. So to be honest, I never thought I'd be able to talk about this, but I'm so glad that I'm able to, and the second I saw a $20 figure, I immediately knew I needed to get it. Alright guys, so without further ado, let's jump into this unboxing. So, I should also mention, the two reasons why I ended up doing a synopsis of the anime is because A, I forgot about the unboxing, and thinking about it, I'm pretty sure it's actually before I did stuff like synopsis. Alright, oh my gosh, that comes apart. Did not expect that. Okay, so, first things first, let's go over the scissor blade itself. This is actually one of the more interesting anime weapons, as you don't really think about it too much, but this works really well as a blade, and it's one of the reasons why I realized that scissors are basically just two knives that are glued together. So, if you look at this, you see some pretty interesting and cool details. So the handle itself is like the handle on a scissor, and it does have a bit of a detachable part. You also have this part, which I'm guessing you connect these to let her hold it, but I'm not entirely sure just yet. Going from the handle though, you do have this little hole there, showing that it is detached from another blade, and you do have this sharp edge here, which starts the blade. It curves all the way up, having a very sharp edge on the figure, and you have one more hole in there as well. This is actually a really nice blade, and it looks really cool. On one side it's flat, on the other it has more of a dimension to it. So again, another pretty cool detail. So one thing that I do like, even though yes, this isn't a circle and that's going to be a little bit hard to actually find a sort of place for it, I do actually really like when anime figures do a base that isn't just blank white and just has no personality to it. Sure, there's not like a Kill la Kill logo plastered on it, but I do still think that it's really neat. And the main girl herself, Ryuko. My god, dude, she is such a freaking cool character. It's one of those things where, honestly, if Mako wasn't there, she probably would be my favorite character. And I do actually really enjoy Senketsu because they do have a very interesting relationship, and he is actually always concerned for her. So the character herself, the main reason why they end up calling her Shadow the Anime Girl is because of her color scheme. And interestingly enough, she is more represented by red, mostly for the blood, while her rival is actually more represented by blue, even though she's seen as the good girl and the rival is seen as the bad girl. But the one big comparison is the fact that you not only have the black hair, but you have this red streak in there that usually goes to the left of her eye, and sometimes her other eye is covered. On this figure, and in many times in the anime, she has a very determined and aggressive look to her, which is always a really nice. It's a little bit hard to see the eyes, but they are painted really nicely with the gray, the black, and the white, and you do see the aggression marks with the eyebrows right there as well, which looks really freaking good. Her scowl is also just super menacing, and I believe this is one of the early poses, or the pose in the opening. For the back of the hair, you have a bit of a wind flow to it with a lot of different spikes. Now, a lot of figures, when they have this spiky type of hair, when you touch it, it is super sharp. Though something that I'm actually going to give them kudos for here is that it's actually very smooth, and I don't feel like you're going to get hurt on this, which is really cool and kind of ironic considering the show is kind of known for being like jokingly a little bit edgy. So one cool detail about Senketsu is, much like the scissor blade is disconnected, he actually only has one working eye. And believe it or not, yes, her chest is where Senketsu's eyes are. And yes, I do understand how strange that is. On the right, you have a detail that's very eye-patchy, where you have an X on there, and you have a little bit of a red ribbon in between. I guess you could call this kind of a nose. And on the other side, that other fold is actually his eye having the red and the yellow. In this form, it actually just looks like a fold, but in the other form, it is shaped more so like an eye, which is pretty cool. From there, you do have the upper part, which has the red line to it, and if you look on the back, you have sort of a sailor cape to it flowing in the wind, and this is battle tethered, which looks really freaking sick. You also do have a little bit of a sharp edge right here on the sleeve. I'm not sure why that's there, other than just to be edgy or to have wind flow, and it's the only thing that's sharp on any of these sharp objects, which is very interesting. For the rest of the sailor uniform, you do also have the sleeves, which kind of goes more into a jock jacket, where you have those puffy sleeves and then you have the red lines on the cuffs. It's a pretty good looking uniform. And then on the left wrist, so this is essentially what she would use to end up activating Senketsu. So normally what she would do is she would take a pin from her pocket, and she would put it in there and she would rip it. Doing that essentially ends up forcing him to drink blood, and I don't remember if she passes out and that's how it goes back, or if she essentially has to like revoke the power for him to turn back. Though it is a pretty interesting type of thing. The glove itself also is a really good look, as it's very shiny on the figure, and you do have some really cool things, like the addition of these silver details on there. For the rest of the uniform, you have these strap-ons in front as well as in the back, and the back also has one strap, which I've never noticed and is very interesting. Whereas the front has two with the buckle, and that's holding up the skirt. To be honest, I think this is one of the animes that kind of crafted how my character design works, because usually when I end up making a skirt, or when I think of skirts, I think of this type of skirt where it's more of this frilly school type skirt or sailor uniform skirt instead of like a pencil skirt. And I just think that it's a really nice look, especially for this. The skirt also does have a bit of some flowing to it as well, and I'm not gonna lie, drawing a skirt like this is a little bit complicated for me, yet I still do it because I do really like the look of it. Another thing to mention is on the skirt you do have a belt with two pouches, one on this side and one on the other, likely to end up holding her scissor blade, but I think does she keep that on her back? Maybe it's to keep like the pin or other things in there. And then going from there, a lot of anime characters do use the long socks or have long shoes. However, Ryuko does end up breaking this trend where she has high tops that go up to her ankles, and these look really nice. They have some pretty subtle etched details on them where there's not a lot going on, But you do have fluff at the ankles with the tongue sticking out, and on the back it kind of goes around with a bit of a ring. You also have some lightning patterns on the side of the shoes, and you do have what looks like maybe some sort of a Velcro on the top, and the bottom of the soles being white. All in all, this figure is really awesome, and I'm actually very happy with it. Of course, though, before we end the video, we need to connect the good old scissor blade in her hand, and gosh, I'm really hoping it's in the hand that I think it is. And that's Ryuko with the scissor blade. Oh my gosh, dude, this is one of the coolest weapons, and even though it's a very static figure, it is such a cool figure that has so many emotions to it, and it is definitely one of my favorites just because of the character and how much I love this anime. It definitely helped shape my idea of what animes are, what characters are, and how fan service works. It actually ended up being the base for my first ever story that I ended up writing. Granted, I decided later on that it was a bit too much, but with that and SAO, it makes a lot of sense how I ended up getting to the point that I got to. But I will always praise animes like this and Sword Art Online, even if they're not perfect. Kill la Kill is one of those series that I always would have felt would have had a great season 2. And while it doesn't, the first season has such a beautiful ending and such a beautiful story to it that I would recommend it to anybody, with the disclaimer of it does get very weird, and if you are a little bit more sensitive to characters being exposed and you're a little more uncomfortable with that, then I would give that disclaimer of maybe you wouldn't want to watch this, or you would want to try some other anime first. But it is a really good anime to step into what anime is and the fan service. I did think this was a bit older of one, though, like I said, it was in 2013. Another cool detail as well is that Trigger has such a beautiful animation style. If you haven't seen that style, and even if you're not interested in the anime, just look at the art style because it is gorgeous. Not only that, but Trigger actually made the recent opening to Shantae and the Seven Sirens, which honestly, now anytime I see Trigger, I'm going to think Kill la Kill in that style, and I'm going to get super excited. If there's any other anime from them, or any anime that you guys would love to see me watch or talk about, let me know in the comment section down below, because who knows, just like with Kill la Kill, I might be able to talk about it one day. Anyway though guys, that's going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed, hit that like button, show us up with open no love, brother, mother, sister, father, iguana. Let me know what you guys think about the anime, who your favorite character is, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Keep your toes safe, and Ryuko's going to find out who killed her dad. Whoosh! I didn't expect that to happen. Now I have to find out who killed her scissor sword. I guess more appropriately, where her scissor sword went.